Hey everyone, I'm making some homemade tuna noodle casserole for dinner tonight with no canned condensed milk product. I'm going to be making my own sauce using cream cheese and other delicious dairy products. So on the stove, I've just got like a saucepan with high sides, and I'm melting some butter in it. And I also have a big pan of water coming to a boil to cook my noodles. The only reason I'm using red onion is I have it left over from some stuff that I cooked earlier this week, so that's what I'm going to use. Typically, I'd probably make this with, yellow cooking onion, but whatever you have on hand is a-okay to use. Also, I usually put mushrooms in this, but I have neither canned mushroom pieces nor fresh mushrooms in the refrigerator, so no mushrooms in our tuna noodle. That's all right. It'll still taste delicious. I'm also making a half batch of what I would typically make, so I'm only going to be using 6 ounces of egg noodles and 1 can of tuna instead of my full bag of egg noodles and 2 cans of tuna. All right, what other onion can I chop up here? So I'm doing a mince on this. It's going to get sauteed, then it's going to be in a sauce. So small enough that it will cook quickly and not have huge chunks in the casserole. This is like a third-ish of a red onion. The red onions have been huge lately. So I've gotten 3 recipes out of this. I made some guacamole for dinner last night. We had pulled chicken enchiladas. Those came out really delicious. I was quite happy with them. I did the chicken in the Instant Pot. Oh, so tender. Ooh, my butter is nice and bubbly, so I'm going to get the onion sauteing. Then I'll cut up the garlic. And I'm not microplaning the garlic. I know, what is wrong with me? But it's going into the sauce. So I'm going to chop off the little end. And then to do these large pieces, whatever side of the garlic is flattest. So this is really round. I don't want it on that side. That's much flatter. So I'm going to put it down the flat of my knife, the thickest part, and then my hand, I'm going to keep my fingers upright. You don't want to have them flat because you could cut yourself there. So the heel of your palm, or your wrist, that area, is going to firmly smack the knife and crush the garlic. Just like that. Then I'm going to run my knife through it. And that's going to be a nice little mince for my sauce. Perfect. Now before I started preparing all this and then going live, I spent a good 20 minutes shelling fresh English peas. Oh my goodness. I have a much greater appreciation for machines and all the work that goes into creating, like canned products, frozen bags of peas, those things. And this is why your food costs a lot more money when you go to a restaurant, because you're paying for someone to use really good ingredients and make you delicious tasting food. All right, so now we've got our onions and garlic sauteing away over here. Probably move that a little bit like that. The whole bag of peas that I got from my muck order when I shelled them, that's about how many I have. And these are the reason that I'm making tuna noodle tonight, actually. They came in our muck order, and we're not huge pea eaters. So I was like, what can I make with these peas? And the first thing that came to mind was some tuna noodle. I'm like, wow, all right. And yes, I have to turn the oven on for it, but not that big a deal. We'll have leftovers for lunch, which will be great. So tuna noodle is a good choice. And our kitchen doesn't get too hot, actually, when we turn the oven on. So I think we're going to be okay. I've got it preheating to 350 while I saute up these. The second part of this dish involves making a thickened sauce. So I have exactly 2 tablespoons of butter that I'm sauteing the onions and garlic in, and I'm going to be adding 2 tablespoons of flour. This is called a roux. When you mix butter and flour together and you cook it, we want to cook that raw flavor. Actually, I'm going to season this with some salt and pepper right now. You want to cook that raw flavor out of the flour and coat it in the fat. Then when you add your liquid, it's going to thicken your sauce. And I'm making my white sauce really thin because it is going to go on noodles, and the noodles themselves will absorb some liquid. And I personally just like a looser tuna noodle casserole. All right, so that's looking, our onions have softened up nicely. I can smell the garlic, so I'm putting, again, 2 tablespoons, which is 1/8 of a cup. There's 16 tablespoons in a cup, so 2/16 is 1/8. All right, so I'm making sure that all the flour gets coated in the fat, the 2 tablespoons of butter, and then I'm just cooking that raw flavor out of the flour. It only needs like 30 seconds or so. I just want to get that cooked out. And I'm going to be adding a generous 1.5 cups of milk because, again, I want that slightly looser white sauce for my noodles and personal preference. So this basic ratio of 2 tablespoons of butter to 2 tablespoons of flour, and it's usually about 1 cup of milk. So you can play around with that for a thinner or thicker sauce, but always remember your flour and butter is a 1-to-1 ratio. All right, so I'm adding my generous 1.5 cups of milk all at once. No like little dribbling it in and whisking, all that. You just dump it all in there and then stir around. The clumps of flour will dissolve into your milk. And as it reaches temperature, I've got this over pretty high heat. If I take this off, you can see big flame. When this comes up to a simmer, you'll see the edges start to bubble, and then you'll notice your sauce beginning to tighten. And that's what we want. We're thickening this sauce up. And a couple other ingredients that are going to go in here are 4 ounces of cream cheese and a can of tuna. So I prefer buying tuna in vegetable oil. I think the flavor is better and the tuna itself is really moist. I find tuna packed in water somehow dry. And there's 2 different types of tuna. So this is chunk light tuna. I did a little research on this a while back. I'm trying to remember. I think the chunk light tuna is something called skipjack, and if you look at the ingredients over here, it says light tuna. So the tuna that's a little more expensive, the wild caught tuna, that's usually caught on individual fishing lines, not like huge net fishing. So they can ensure that they're getting just tuna in that. And it's a slightly different type of tuna. Again, you can research the difference between chunk light tuna and I don't even know what the other can is called, but the tuna that's caught on the line has a much more tuna taste to it, like a stronger tuna fish taste. And the tuna, the chunk light, because it's a different type of tuna, has a milder flavor. So I do prefer that, especially for sandwich making. Oh, our water's almost to a boil over here for our noodles. I do prefer the lighter flavored tuna, especially, like I said, for sandwich making. I enjoy it. So you can check out the 2, and I'm sure if you guys try tuna in oil, you will also be able to tell the difference in the texture. So again, I'm going to do just 4 ounces of cream cheese, which is half a block. Stir that in. I'm going to turn my heat down now because it's thickened. I'm just using the heat in here, getting my cream cheese melted. If I had canned peas or frozen peas, I would go ahead and add them into the sauce right now. If they're canned, make sure you drain them, of course. I'm using those fresh peas, so I'm going to cook them in the noodle water the last like 2 to 3 minutes of the noodle cooking time. All right, so my water's to a boil over here. I'm adding in to my noodle water just some iodized salt. So I like to use this up for my cooking water, and I save my Morton's kosher salt for cooking, like seasoning this, seasoning my meat, all those sort of things. But using up this can of iodized salt just for my pasta water. And again, I'm doing 6 ounces. I'm using light and fluffy medium egg noodles today. And this is half a bag right in there. And these only have to cook for 6 minutes. I better set a timer. I'm notorious for getting chatting and then forgetting things. Anyone who's ever been in my running group knows that's true. When we're doing intervals, oh my goodness. I lose track of the intervals, how many we've done, how many minutes we've been running. My group is like, Coach, can we stop running? And I'm like, oh yeah, we should have stopped, a minute and a half ago. I'm really sorry, guys. So, better to set a timer. All right, let me give our noodles a stir over here to agitate them and make sure they don't clump together. And like I said, the last like 2 or 3 minutes of the noodles cooking, I'll dump those shelled English peas in, and they will cook some in the water. And if they're not quite done, that's all right, because they're going to get baked in the oven in the casserole anyway, so that's fine. Not too worried about them. All right, let's get this tuna open and drained. Our cream cheese is melting in here nicely. Sauce looks thick. Now, if for some reason you are making this and you're like, ooh, that's a little tighter, like a little thicker than I want, go ahead and just add a little more milk in. If we mix this with our noodles and I think it looks a little too tight, I just splash some more milk in, and before I bake it, that's fine. It's not gonna change the flavor, it's just the consistency of the sauce. And this is honestly looking a little tight. We'll see. Like I said, I'm going to add the tuna, and once I add the noodles in. The other fun thing I'm doing with our tuna noodle tonight is a potato chip topping. That's a little better. Can you see a little better? It's a potato chip topping. I've used Ritz crackers in the past. I've done panko breadcrumbs mixed with Parmesan. What else have I tried on top of tuna noodle? Anything that just gives it like a crunchy, salty element, I really enjoy. All right. I'm just opening up the tuna off to the side over here. I have a handheld can opener that I love. I don't even remember where I got it. It's like a throwback to when you would go camping as a kid. I don't know if you guys use an electric one, but I love this thing. It's amazing. It's lasted me, I don't even see a brand name on it. It's lasted me for as long as I can remember. Swing away. I don't know. I'm draining a little bit of the oil off, but I'm not pressing the lid into the tuna. I'm just getting that excess amount, and then see how there's still even like a little layer of oil in there? That's good. It's gonna help the tuna taste permeate your whole sauce. So there we go. Can right in, mix. There we go. I'm also going to do some cheddar cheese on top of, 3 minutes. Dump the peas into the water. All right, give my noodles and peas a stir. There we go. I was saying I'm also going to do some cheddar cheese on top of the tuna noodle. And sometimes I like to stir a little Parmesan cheese into my sauce as well. I'm going to give this a little taste, see if it needs salt, pepper, etc. Oh, that's pretty good. Maybe more pepper. I do like a lot of black pepper in things. Ooh, I can tell that this is getting low on peppercorns. I'm gonna have to refill it soon, which is pretty easy to do. This knob right here just spins off, and then this whole thing lifts off. You dump the peppercorns in, put the top on, rescrew. I buy most of my spices from Penzeys. I found them a long time ago, actually a brick and mortar store. We stopped in at it, and I got some sort of spice blend. I found some unique spices from them at the time, so I found them on the internet, and I just bulk order lots of my spices. Cumin, dried dill, peppercorns, cinnamon, some spice blends, you know, check those out. What else? I can't think of any other spices that I use, you know, pretty regularly that I would buy in bulk anyway. I think my coriander, I buy that just at, you know, Wegmans, whatever, McCormick or Spice Islands. Nothing too crazy. But I use a lot of dried dill, a lot of cumin, a lot of cinnamon, peppercorns like crazy. Oh, garlic powder. What else do I buy? I can't even think of anything else. I have a whole drawer of spices, but they're the small McCormick, you know, Spice Island ones. All right, the sauce is pretty much done. Tastes good. So I'm going to turn that off. And in 10 seconds, the noodles are going to be done. So I'm going to drain them. And then I'm just going to combine the two products together. Yum. Oh. Let's turn off the timer. There we go. All right, drain these. And remember, the peas have been floating in here. They're now floating at the surface, so I feel confident they're mostly cooked. All right, and I'm gonna trade pots. Ooh, sorry about the steam. All right, I'm gonna dump my tuna sauce into the big pot so I can mix it all together. And I am going to switch over to a spatula here so I can scrape every last bit of sauce onto my noodles. Ooh, the stove is roasty toasty. Holy cow. All right, so now we've got our homemade white sauce, better than the condensed. I grew up eating the condensed. I actually have condensed soup in my cupboard. I still cook with condensed soup. It's great for so many things. But this tuna noodle recipe is easy to make without condensed soup, so I do. All right, let's grab our pasta and peas. So if I had canned mushrooms, you could drain them and add them at this point, or you could have stirred them into the sauce. If you have fresh mushrooms, I would have sauteed them with the onions and garlic so that they were cooked and not mushy. All right, give this a stir. Ooh, so much pots. Normally I try to use as few pots as possible, but the sauce that I made the pot that I made the sauce in would not have been big enough to combine these together. So right now, the consistency of this looks great. I'm happy with the consistency. I don't think I need to add any milk to this to thin it out. It's sauce. There's sauce that's not coating the noodles, which is what I like. A little extra sauce in there. And the noodles will absorb some liquid, you know, as they're cooking in the oven in the casserole. So if you were on the fence whether it needs more milk or not, I would add a little because I hate dry casserole. So this is looking beautiful. Like I said, we've got some sauce that's not coating the noodles, so I'm happy. I'm gonna grab a 9x13 pan. This is only half a recipe. I have a slightly larger casserole that if I were doing a full recipe in, I would use that. But I want a lot of surface area because I want that topping, the crispy potato chips and the cheddar cheese. Let's see here. I should probably spray this with a little Pam because we don't want sticking happening. There we go. All right, so sprayed that with some Pam. Then I'm gonna dump my noodle mixture in. And like I said, half recipe, but I'm still using a 9x13 because I want all that surface area. There we go. The crispy topping is like the best part, you know? Now, I've never made tuna noodle with anything other than tuna, but I'm wondering if like the canned crab meat or canned clams, those little tiny shrimps, if those would be good. And then you could have like baby shrimp casserole instead of tuna noodle casserole. I don't know. Maybe a mixed seafood casserole could be good. Especially if you're making your own homemade, you could sauce, you could add in some other spices like tarragon, or what else goes well? Old Bay seasoning. Ooh, sprinkle that in with the potato chips. Ooh, that actually sounds really good. All right, cheddar cheese. So I shredded like about half a block of cheddar cheese. I'm just gonna sprinkle that on the top. And then I'm gonna do my crushed potato chips. And this is Wegmans, just sharp cheddar cheese. It's the white cheese. They also make an orange one. I don't know if I can't remember if the orange one is sharp cheddar or extra sharp cheddar. All right, that looks pretty evenly spread out. Not that big a deal. All right, and then some potato chips. Fresh bag, so they're super crispy. It's the wavy, Wegmans wavy. And you could put a bunch of them in a, what do you call it, like a large Ziploc bag and crush them up, but I don't want to get that dirty and waste the plastic. So I'm just gonna, in my hands, crunch some chips up. Look at that. Just about perfect. So I'll do that 3 times. Crunch some chips. Probably eat a chip. There we go. Oh, that's a pretty big chunk. Break that up a little more there. There we go. And let's do that one more time for this last little area. And then it's going to go in a 350-degree oven. Everything in here is cooked. The point of the oven is to melt the cheese, brown the edges, and this topping, if you were using like crackers with butter, you want to give that topping a chance to crisp up. So I'm just going to throw it in the oven, probably like 20 minutes. I just want to see some bubbling around the edges and maybe a little brownness. I want to make sure my potato chips don't burn, but with 350, like, they're going to be fine. They're not going to burn. All right, that looks pretty covered. All right, there you go. Tuna noodle casserole with a potato chip topping and no condensed soup. That's my jam. I'll see you guys later.